Hey guys, it's Lats, and today I'm going to be talking about my experience with OCD. This is probably the most difficult video I've made, and that's just because this is a very kind of personal and I don't want to say sensitive, but like definitely the thing that I struggle with the most. And I actually got inspired to make this video by a comment I got on one of my community posts where I was asking you guys to comment things that you'd want me to talk about. And as always, feel free to comment things that you want me to talk about. But they wanted me to talk about things that I struggle with and just be open about it. And although all the things that I post on this channel are kind of things that I struggle with, this is definitely the number one. So OCD is obsessive compulsive disorder. And I feel like the stereotype or the most common thing that people think of when they think of OCD is like a neat freak. Everything needs to be clean. Everything needs to be perfect. Or like a germaphobe. I feel like those are the top two. And although that's definitely, an aspect of OCD, or I should say a type maybe, that's not really the one I struggle with the most. I definitely do have aspects of like kind of that germaphobe thing, but it's definitely not number one for me. My number one thing is intrusive thoughts. And these intrusive thoughts could be anything. Pretty much they take over my whole life. I know that sounds very dramatic, but it kind of does find its way through a lot of aspects of my life, including this YouTube channel, which I'll get into later. I guess we'll start in the beginning where I first kind of noticed this, and that was in 2021, so this was only a couple years ago now. And what I noticed is I would get really anxious or worried about like locking my car door or locking my house. So for example, say I was driving to college, parked my car, locked it, and started walking over to my classes. During my walk to classes, I could be like 5, 10 minutes into my walk. I will get the thought in my head that, oh, did you lock your car door? And I feel like a lot of people have had those thoughts before. I'm not acting like these thoughts that I've had in my head are very unique. But the thing with OCD is it kind of takes over, and that's the only thought you can think of. And you'll have to do something about it. That's where the compulsive part of obsessive compulsive disorder is. So what would happen is I would have to go back and walk, 5 to 10 minutes back to my car to check that I locked it. And it was always locked. There was never a time where it was never locked. But, something in my mind was telling me like, oh, you didn't lock your car door. You'll have to go check. And how it feels like, at least this is how I've kind of been describing it to people, is like, that gut feeling you'll get when like something's wrong. Like you'll feel like, oh, you didn't do something. Like that's genuinely the feeling that it feels like, which sucks. And the biggest thing is just a time waster, obviously. It's like I'm going back to check that, this door's locked. When deep in my head, I know it's locked because I checked that it was. But, my brain tells me otherwise. But this would get really bad sometimes. I remember when I used to work at a pretzel place, I would have to lock up at the end of the shift if I was closing. And most times I was closing. And there were nights where I would lock the door at work, go home, drive all the way home. I mean, I didn't live that far from it, but I would be at my house. And there were nights where I would drive back to check that it was locked. Like that probably looked crazy if they were checking the security cameras to see what was going on. But I would try to open the door and it would be locked, obviously, but something in my brain was telling me when I got home that you didn't lock the door. Someone's going to break in, steal all the stuff, the pretzel supplies, the money, and it would all be your fault. And I think deep down, a lot of this stuff just stems from people's perception of me. I think all the stuff that I have OCD about will lead to how someone will think of me if that event happens, right? If I don't lock my house, right, and like someone breaks in, like this isn't my house, it's my parents' house. I will feel so bad if, I made a mistake and, we got robbed, let's say. Same thing with work, I feel like that's obvious, you don't lock up, something happens, and then it's your fault, you didn't lock up. But this also happens with other things in my life. For example, right now where I work, I have to like send a lot of files over, sending a lot of emails, sending a lot of messages, on my computer. And one of the thoughts that pops in my head is, what if you're sending, the wrong file to someone and it's an inappropriate photo of yourself, which, sounds crazy because I don't have any of those kind of photos, on my phone, on my computer, nothing. But just the thought pops in my head that what if you did? Same thing with like sending an inappropriate message. Say I sent something, racist. Like this sounds crazy saying it out loud right now, but it genuinely feels like I did these things when I'm having kind of, I guess, like, I don't want to say episode. That makes it sound like of crazy thing, but I guess I will say that because sometimes it does feel like it's, absolutely insane. But yeah, like those thoughts will pop in my head where it's like, oh, you sent an inappropriate image, in an email, and I'll have to go check the email, and of course it's never been, what I think it is. But there were some days where I have a separate laptop for work, thank God, because if it was the same computer, I think that would make this issue 10 times worse. But I have my separate computer. But there will be days where I turn off my work computer, go on about my day, and the thought will pop in my head exactly what I said. Oh, what if you sent an inappropriate message? Oh, what if you did this? and I'll have to, log back into the computer, check every single email that I sent, check every single, message chat that we have. And again, it's just so annoying where it's just like, I'm just doing this and it's like, I know deep down that it's not going to be there, right? But something in my head's telling me that I have to check it, and it's just been so annoying. And with this YouTube channel, I'm checking everything that I post on this YouTube channel. I'm checking even the gameplay itself to make sure, nothing is in there that shouldn't be in there. I'm checking the commentary, definitely, to make sure I'm not saying anything I don't want to be saying, shouldn't be saying. And even when I'm responding to comments, like, I kind of get the thoughts like, oh, what if I like typed something that I shouldn't have typed? And it's just so annoying because it's like such a time waster, obviously. And it's like, why am I worrying about this stuff that I would know that I actually did? It's not like something that would happen and I wouldn't know that I did it. Like, a lot of the stuff that I worry about is stuff that like hasn't happened, if that makes sense. I'm just worried about the possibility of it happening. So how have I been trying to overcome this? At first, what I thought was the best solution, but really wasn't long term, would be I would film myself like making sure my car door is locked or the door at work is locked. And although it did help with, not going back to check, I would still have to, watch the video to make sure I locked the door. Like, the thought would still pop into my head, and I'd still have to, like, do a compulsion, I guess, to, see that what I did actually happened. But eventually I was just kind of fed up of constantly, recording these videos that I just stopped doing it. And I just forced myself to kind of like feel that emotion of like, okay, I think this door isn't locked. But you just kind of have to like trust yourself and tell yourself like, listen, you locked that door. You wouldn't just forget to do it, especially with your OCD. Like, you would know that you didn't do that. And that has definitely helped long term because the double checking of like locking things has definitely decreased so much, especially since, I first started noticing it. The way that I've been trying to deal with it is it sounds simple on paper, but it's actually been super difficult to try to do. And you kind of just have to accept the possibility of it happening. You have to accept that, yeah, there could be a chance that, send an inappropriate message at work. There could be a chance that, you forget to lock your door and someone breaks into your house. Like, that sounds crazy, especially with some of the thoughts that I get where it's like, yeah, you kind of have to just be okay with that. But it's kind of what you have to do. And that's been working for me. It's definitely still a struggle. And as I said, a lot of this stuff stems from how people will perceive me. A lot of these things I have these intrusive thoughts over will be, how will this person think of me if this is true? And I think part of it, I don't want to blame it all on this, but I think part of it is due to like cancel culture. I've spent so much time on the internet and I've seen so many people, it feels like monthly at this point, where you'll hear something come out about them and everyone's hating on them. Everyone's canceling them over stuff. Or just something, leaks of them. Say it's an inappropriate photo of them. Say it's, an old tweet, whatever it is. So I think that definitely has like stayed in my brain where I'm definitely super careful, especially when I'm dealing with like technology, I guess, where I'm talking about like social media or I'm at work sending like emails where, everything is permanent on the internet and stuff like that. But I don't think that's the sole reason. I think that's part of it in that, like, I guess where it's dealing with like more digital stuff. But like in terms of like, personal life and stuff like that, I don't really know where it deals from. I think it definitely is, again, along those lines of, I don't want people to think negatively of me. I don't want people to think of me as lesser than how I put myself out there. But I think I just got to be okay with, not everyone's going to like you. You're going to make mistakes in your life. Nobody's perfect. And even if some of these things happen, it's really not the end of the world. But yeah, this was definitely not the easiest video for me to make, if I'm being honest. But I hope the fact that I'm talking about it and posting it will kind of like take this weight off my shoulder of like just like not hiding it as much. And hopefully that will like help with it. I don't know if it will. I could just be like doing this for nothing. But there's definitely a lot more I could talk about on this topic. I have only really kind of scratched the surface on it. I kind of try to talk about the more lighter subjects that are not super dark, because there's definitely a deeper side to this that I definitely struggle with. But I didn't want to get too far into it. So if you guys would want me to talk about it more, I could definitely try to do it. It's definitely not something that's super easy to talk about for me. But if you've made it this far in the video, I really do appreciate it. I hope you guys are doing well. And if you enjoyed, please consider subscribing. And as always, I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace out.